my aunt, which she was my favorite, and the quilt first went to my sister. Well, I knew she wasn't probably going to do anything with it. So when I got it, I thought, I want it to be somewhere where somebody else can enjoy it. And then Carol and I talked about it, my niece, and she said, okay, I'll call right away. We got an appointment to bring it down, and I thought, what better place to have it? Because more people can enjoy it than just me. I knew that I was probably the last one that would want it, and I would rather have a place that it was going to be permanently displayed. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy about it.
We're happy to have it, that's for sure. Now, who made this?
My aunt, her name was Aunt May, and it was her mother that made it in, I think it's 1895.
Oh, wow.
And then her mother died quite young, and she was the only child. So of course she had this, and then a lot of the glassware I do have, and my aunt willed that to me. But this turned up later on, and I was so happy to get it. But I thought, what better place can I have it than right here?
Right.
But I see you have a lot of glassware and things in your cabinets. I don't know whether anyone's going to want those later, and I'll think about that.
That sounds good.
I'll think about that, whether it would be a good place to have it here. But they are beautiful. They're beautiful. There's two pieces that I have. I'm going to have to cough.
Right, it's okay. Yeah, you can call. So the quilt. Tell me about. Did the same one person make it, or did it?
No,
one person. Okay.
Yeah, my aunt's mother made, I guess, the complete quilt, from what I understood from my aunt. And of course, then she got it, and her mother died pretty young as well. So she had it for many, many years. I don't really know how my sister got hold of it. And of course, she passed away, so eventually it got to me.
Right, and there's initials sewn in here. MHO and AMO.
I think, well, I happen to know they're all Donies because.
Oh, is it a D? Yes, it's a D.
A D.
I'm sorry, yes.
And probably, and I'm not sure of her mother's husband's name, but I feel sure that some of them are either her, well, it would be her husband. I think that's what it would be, because I never thought about asking her about this quilt, because I didn't have it in my hands at the time.
Sure.
So I'm sure they're all Donies, because that was what her maiden name was.
And tell me about this ruffle. This has
The ruffle was supposedly part of the wedding gown. And I thought, how fascinating is that she would put that on the quilt. But she must have been a marvelous person. You know, I've never met her, of course, but I thought, how fascinating is that? So I was just delighted that I got the quilt, but this is the best place I can think of to have it.
Thank you, thank you. Now, you were raised in Stroudsburg, right?
Oh, yes, I was.
And
I was born, do you know where Featherman Street is?
Oh yeah, right down.
Well, that's where I was born.
Wonderful.
Born and raised, and of course I always went to the Morey School, which I loved, and the Stroudsburg High School. And at the time it was really funny because my Aunt May was actually the first house up from the high school other than the apartments that were built in the back. So of course when I went to school, and at the time I had asthma pretty good, and a lot of times by the time I would walk from school to her house, I needed a break. So I would stop there and talk with her. And well, she was just one of the best. I just loved her.
And those are some of the photos that we have now, right? Do we have some photos from her?
Now you mean from
Maybe I might be mixed up. Never mind.
Yeah, yeah, her house was there.
Okay.
That house is gone now.
Oh, is it?
And the next house was Benzoni's, that one's gone. And then the next one was one of my schoolmates, that one is still there.
And who was that?
That she was Elnora Arnold at the time. And she married a Air Force, I think he was a lieutenant. And of course, then they moved to Jersey, and I still occasionally keep in touch with her. So I often think about, oh, I must call her and tell her her house is still there.
It's still there. I'm sure.
Still there.
So I'm sure Main Street sure has changed a lot over the years.
How much it has changed. And even where I was born and raised, it is so different than it was back then. Because that street was a lovely street at the time. Good people lived across from us. Bocars, that name is probably familiar to you.
Mm-hmm.
Bocars lived in one side and the other brother lived on the other side. And then I'm trying to think, when they left, I believe the Warners moved in. Now they have they did have a beer distributor. I don't know whose hands or if it is still now, but we had excellent neighbors all our lives growing up. It was just a wonderful place to be raised and lived.
What year did you graduate from Stroudsburg?
1947.
47.
And of course, we never had a car, so I did a lot of walking. And I had another friend that I just did lose not too long ago, Marion Ace. I don't know if you would know her at all or not. And she just passed away about a month and a half, I think it is by now. So we were friends forever, because she lived just down on Drury Avenue, and we did a lot of walking. She and I walked. She had an aunt over on East Brown, I think it is.
Oh wow!
And
all the way over to East Stroudsburg.
We did. We walked over to her aunt's place, and we did a lot of walking, because if you don't have a car, you're going to walk. And I know her. She lived most of her life with her mother, but she did a lot of walking too, because they had no car. So we had a good relationship and friends forever.
Sure. So everything you needed, could you get on Main Street?
Everything. And the wonderful places that you could go for Sundays, down on Lower Main. Then there was one over on East Stroudsburg, where the train station is. There was a good Sunday shop there. So we did a lot over the years.
So you say Sunday shop, do you mean to go eat?
No, well, basically, yes, sandwiches, but mainly ice cream.
Oh, okay.
But that's gone as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that were different when I was growing up, and she graduated actually in 46. But that didn't matter, we just stayed friends forever.
Sure, of course, of course.
And then even later in years, they had a travel home, but they moved it, they left it. We're down in Florida, I'm trying to think of the name of that place, but my husband's parents had a place at Dade City, so we often went down there, and then we would visit our friends over at the trailer court, and it was a good time. But they had that for many years that we went there. And well, I don't know whether you know any of the other people, because we used to go, my Shirley, well, she was Slutter last, but anyway, they had a beautiful home way down, and they had a boat, and we often went down there and visited her. Actually, we went down and house sat for her sometimes.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, because she would go on a cruise, and we'd house sit, and what a lovely vacation. To us, it wasn't house sitting, it was a vacation.
Absolutely.
So it was a lot of good times.
That's wonderful.
But with my aunt living so close, we just I had a very excellent relationship with her. So, actually, in later years, when she became ill, for a time we brought her to our home, and I knew she wasn't as happy as being in her own home, so then we went down and lived with her. And at the time, well, we had adopted a little girl, and she was living with us in my Aunt May's house on West Main Street, and I thought, how neat, but it was different, but we enjoyed it, living there with her to make her happy.
Well, that's what you do for family.
You're correct, that's what you do. We do, and we did. We brought her up to our home, but I knew she wasn't as happy there. We just decided we'd move in with her, and we did. We stayed with her until she passed away. And of course, it was a little rough time, because at that time my daughter had a heart problem. So it was rough, but we got through it all. And of course, she had heart surgery when she was 7.
Oh, wow.
But it was all good. She's still good.
Good.
She's still good.
Good.
And
Good.
so
I guess pretty much the Stroud Mansion has always been here.
it has been.
You've walked past
It
this.
has.
How many hundreds of times do you think you walked
Hundreds of
it?
times, but never was in it. Never was in it. So this is truly amazing to me, because I know there's a lot of history here. And I do have really old pictures that someone gave my husband. I think that some of his parents might be, well, his father's side of the family, but I think there's a lot of people that I don't know anymore, and if I can and they'd want to take them when I get my hands back on them, I'd be glad to bring them down to see if they would want them.
And now you have a piece of your own history here at the Historical Association.
Absolutely. I'm delighted and really happy about it.
Well, we're happy to know, and thank you so much for thinking of us and for sharing your story.
I'm so delighted and happy that it's here.
Well, we're happy to have it. We'll
It'll
take
be
good
here
care
now
of it.
forever, right?
Yeah, it will be. It will be.
And there's a note that's in with it, right inside, I guess, in a little note that my aunt wrote. And I thought she was so good about knowing things and keeping things the way she should, because she knew, well, they took my dad in, and actually they just changed his name. They did. I couldn't believe it, but that's what they did, because that wasn't his original name, and I knew that because my aunt told me. And well, he had actually, I think there was 5 in that family, and of course his aunt took him, and then one of my aunts was adopted in Reading, and one of them had a very good home. The other one was adopted, and I don't think hers was as lucky, but those 2 were adopted out. And then I believe there was a brother, I think he was in an accident or something, and I think he was killed. But
So what was the original name then? Do you remember?
it's one that you would never know. And I have wanted, and I never got there, I wanted to often go to the courthouse down in Reading, because that's the only place I know that I could get everything. But actually it's spelled Huron, Huron. I never heard the name before, but that's what my aunt told me. I wrote it down, and I'm positive that's the way it was spelled. And they were, I think, all born in Reading. And then my dad was the only one that came up to his aunt. And then my aunt and he were raised like sister and brother. So he was lucky. He really was lucky. And then I was proud. Well, the aunt from Reading, I know that her son used to bring her up to visit when I lived on Featherman Street. and we always had a good relationship with, the family. I can remember him bringing his mom and dad up to visit, and I don't know whether his dad drove, but, their son always drove. And I knew at one time, I think he wanted to be a funeral director, but I don't think that happened. I don't know what happened that he didn't pursue that. But, well, then when my aunt, his mother, passed away, there was two of my sisters, and actually it was Carol's mother, because she was a sister, and then my other sister, and we went down to the funeral, and there were not many people there at that time. That was quite a while ago, but they were happy that, well, the son was very happy that we did come, and they didn't have anything like after the service, but he took us out for a lunch, which I thought was so nice of him. But we always had a good friendship with him, and it was strange because he stayed with his parents until both of them passed away, and he was such a nice man. But he finally got married after many, many years, and I knew he had different relationships, but I think he just felt he had to stay with his mother and father. But then he did marry, and he was a very nice man. So we were happy that we always had contact and a good relationship. And like,
so what was your first job? Was it in town?
oh, it was.
What was your first job?
Well, let's see. My first one was at Newberry's. That was my first job.
And what did you do there?
And well, I was cashier. And then after that, you won't even know the name, New Made Hosiery.
We sure do. We have some of the hosiery here in our collection.
Well, I did work there. I was an examiner of hosiery.
So it was the quality control, is that what that was?
Well, it more or less was. You knew what you were doing, and you pulled them over a form, inspected, and it was pretty neat. And let's see, where did I go from there? I worked for a while down at the gas company. That was on Lower Main at that time. I guess, I don't know if it's still there, but I worked there for several years. And then I didn't work for a while after I had my daughter. And well, one of my friends, that her husband was a supervisor at the employment office. And she said to me one day, Charlotte, she said, they need help up there. And it would probably be temporary. So she said, why don't you go to work there, even if it's part-time for a while? She said, I know my husband would be glad if you came. So I did. I applied, they hired me right away, and I worked at the employment office, and it was part-time for a while, and then I was on layoff for a while, and then they called me to come back, and in the end, I worked there for 18 years.
Wow.
And I enjoyed it. I liked my job. I worked first in the front lines where you take, the people's claims, and then later I became a, what did they call it? I had a title at the time, but it was problem cases and that sort of thing, and I enjoyed it so much.
I'm sure you got to know a lot of people through that job.
I did. I knew a lot of people, and I heard often through the grapevine that people liked it when they came to me.
Aww.
And I thought that was so nice when you do hear that, because sometimes you don't hear that, in a place like that, but they did, and I had a lot of friends. In fact, one fella that was hired almost at the same time as he's still there. He'll call me on my birthday, and when someone passes away, he will come for a viewing, and he does. He always calls me on my birthday, and now I try to send him a card on his birthday, and One day I said, "Why are you still working?" He said, "What else would I do?" He didn't marry, and he's a veterans rep, and he's still there.
And you said, because you have 2 sisters, you said? You have,
Well, I did.
okay,
yeah.
what's the order? Are you oldest, middle, or
Uh,
youngest?
I had a brother that was the oldest, and then my one Anita, and her name was Anita, she was next, and then I was next, and then Carol's mother was next, and then I had a brother that passed away. He was only 48 years old, and then a younger brother that was like 14 years younger than I, and he passed away. He was a little bit different, I gotta say that. And he drank too much, and he moved to Florida, and we always felt that we needed to help him. And we all did the best we could. Both sisters did everything we could for him. But, and Carol knows how rough it was. But, I love to live in Stroudsburg. I love to walk these streets in Stroudsburg. And now I'm so glad that I got in here to see it. This is really a pleasure to me.
Well, thank you again. It means so much. Thank you for sharing your story.
Well, you're more than welcome, more than welcome. And Carol is responsible because she's